All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a magnifying glass to the Earth Charter's Pillar 4. And look, we're not going to treat this like some lofty, abstract global theory. No way. We're looking at this as a literal, boots-on-the-ground blueprint for building a better, incredibly resilient community right in your own backyard. Because really, how do you actually build peace? It's the ultimate question, right? We hear phrases like promoting peace thrown around all the time, but what does that actually look like on a random Tuesday night in your neighborhood? Well, today we'll see exactly how translating these big Earth Charter principles into ground-level, highly practical actions is the antidote to modern societal disconnection. It's how you build a real, functioning democracy. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the blueprint for democracy, demanding local transparency, sharing sustainable skills, representing all living beings, transforming community conflict, and finally, taking local action. Kicking things off with Section 1, the blueprint for democracy. This is the absolute core of Pillar V, which leads us right into Section 2, demanding local transparency. Now, the Charter asks us to strengthen democratic institutions, providing transparency, accountability, and inclusive participation. But let's bring that massive concept down to earth. Taking action literally starts with empowering yourself against everyday bureaucracy. I mean, think about a typical city budget allocation. To the average citizen, it looks like a giant, dense puzzle, right? Well, you can flip the script by starting a transparency workshop. And that simply begins with researching how your own local city budget is actually sliced up. Running this workshop is super straightforward. Just follow these steps. First, you get together and research the local city budget. Second, you take that raw data and draft a citizen's guide. And third, you simplify exactly where those tax dollars are going using everyday language. You strip out all the jargon and bureaucratic red tape. By doing this, you're not just complaining about a broken system. You're actively making local governance accountable to the average person. You're taking this intimidating structure and totally demystifying it.
Okay, moving right along to Section 3, sharing sustainable skills.
The next major principle of Pillar 4 demands we integrate the knowledge and skills needed for a sustainable way of life into formal education and lifelong learning. But hey, this requires us to fundamentally rethink what education even is. It's not just a thing that happens inside a school building from 8 to 3. It's a continuous, dynamic, community effort to figure out how we actually live sustainably together. So what's the practical application? You host a sustainable skills share workshop. Just imagine a space where neighbors actually get together to teach each other highly practical, kind of forgotten skills. We're talking about someone showing the group how to mend clothes so they last twice as long, or a quick lesson on fermenting food so absolutely nothing from the garden goes to waste, or even teaching basic solar circuitry so your neighbors can start reducing their reliance on the grid. It is a brilliant way to build collective resilience. Now, as our scope expands beyond just human-to-human interaction, we hit Section 4. Representing all living beings. The Earth Charter really challenges us to treat all living beings with respect, and this dynamic perfectly illustrates our next action step. We are constantly balancing immediate human needs, things like zoning decisions and new commercial developments, against nature's rights, like the right of a local river, a mountain, or even the bee population to just exist. Picture yourself in a town hall meeting. But instead of representing your neighborhood association, you're literally tasked with representing that local river, weighing human development against your own inherent right to flow cleanly. Wild, right? That brings us to a really fascinating workshop called the Council of All Beings. This is a ground-level role-playing exercise where you take on the persona of a non-human element. Again, maybe you're that river or a mountain, and your job is to express how human decisions are directly impacting your existence. Now, I know it might sound a little out there at first, but the goal is to build radical empathy for the natural world. Let me tell you, it completely rewires your perspective on local environmental policy. Of course, bringing all these diverse forces together naturally sparks some friction, which leads us perfectly into Section 5, transforming community conflict. The underlying principle here is promoting a culture of tolerance, nonviolence, and peace. But let's be real. What actually happens when neighbors fundamentally disagree? Traditional conflict usually just turns into a toxic game of assigning blame. Walls go up, people get defensive, and absolutely nothing gets done. So to actually transform a community, we have to pivot to nonviolent communication, or NVC, where the focus shifts entirely away from blame and onto identifying underlying needs and feelings. To really build this muscle, you host a conflict transformation role-play workshop. You take everyday community disputes, maybe it's a fight over property lines, persistent noise complaints, or where local funds should go, and you role-play them using NVC. By actively practicing how to express your own needs without attacking the other person and really listening to the feelings of someone you strongly disagree with, you're literally practicing peace. It takes tolerance from this abstract buzzword and turns it into a hard, trainable conversational skill. And that brings us to our final section, taking local action. As we review this core tenet from the Earth Charter, I really want you to remember something. Building peace, it isn't just a thing done by diplomats in fancy faraway buildings. It is a daily, roll-up-your-sleeves practice. It's the practice of demanding local transparency through a citizen's guide. It's sharing your knowledge of clothes mending or solar circuitry. It's cultivating radical empathy through the council of all beings. And it's doing the hard work of clear, nonviolent communication. So I'm going to leave you with this question to chew on today. Which of these 4 workshops are you going to start in your own community? Because a peaceful democracy, it's not something that just magically happens to us. It is waiting for you to pull out the blueprint, grab some neighbors, and start building.